I think you're on mute.
Yes, yes. 1 minute.
Mhm.
Okay, so a quick check again. So you can see my screen, right, everyone?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Yes, so this is Janvi from Hyderabad, India, a third year computer science student from CBIT. So I'm also a Microsoft student ambassador and also passionate about the latest digital transformations, the latest technologies, and I've been learning over different um, concepts in these technologies from a few months in this lockdown. So I found this topic, RPA, transformation of service operations via hyperautomation, quite interesting, though it's in-depth concept. So I would like to cover on what concepts I've learned and what use cases I've come across. So I would like to discuss with you all about these points. So let's get started. So once again, today I'll be talking about transformation of service operations via hyperautomation. So this is the agenda for today. We'll talk about how is change different from transformation, and how is this slowly giving us a slight introduction, or how is it getting us into the automating process. Also about our main theme, hyper automation, RPA, and even choosing the right tool. Yes, we know that RPA is driving us into um, a better future instead of sitting and working on um, repetitive tasks or mundane tasks. So, but we know all this, but what really, which kind of tool should we use? How is it going to work? So that stuff also we are going to look, and finally we'll end up with a case study which I've gone through over some time. So let's get started. Um, so the speed of technological change is extremely rapid. Even before the transformation of digital phenomena with respect to social media, analytics, and cloud technologies was understood fully, we saw newer emerging technology trends such as IoT, AI, and ML. So all these are great, but are they helping us drive transformations the way proportionately the needs and demands are changing? So that's where robotic process automation emerged. This is where it is an automation of business process at UI level, and are able to connect these disparate technologies. Repetitive, structured, complex tasks and high volume transactional process are being automated. So this session provides an overview and a key components of hyperautomation, and emphasizes on RPA with a detailed case study of the current situation of employee reboarding post-COVID relaxation. So let's look at how organizations can control costs and increase productivity, and also transform their business process, functions, and operations by adopting this end-to-end automation. So, before diving into automation, RPA, hyperautomation, so let's try to understand or get a basic idea on what change is and what transformation is, and how are they different from each other. So, what is change? Uh, so, change is an incremental, and it builds on existing knowledge, practice, and ideas. It fixes the past, in the sense it replaces or substitutes something which is already existing, right? So change is, it is like it is driven by managers. So now coming to transformations, transformation is the change that invents or redefines a whole field, paradigm, process, or industry, and is a quantum leap beyond what currently exists. It brings a complete change and makes a better system, right? So transformation is not just executes a defined change, but also reinvents the organization and discovers new business model based on a vision for the future. Also, this transformation is driven by leaders. Next, so now, what is hyper automation? We've been hearing from here and there. So hyper automation, it drives us uh, to solving complex problems in instead of sitting on working with all the manual tasks, repetitive tasks. So what exactly is this hyper automation? So let's see. So hyper automation is an end-to-end complex business process automation accomplished by harnessing the power of multiple technologies like RPA, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and process mining to augment workers and automate processes in ways that are significantly more impactful than the traditional automation capabilities, right? It is a combination of several process automation tools and technologies that increase the ability to automate more work and provide support for more complex process and even long running workflows. And now, robotic process automation is an error free execution of structured business process by software robots who are directly impacting the customer experience and satisfaction. And that is what uh, people or the companies are looking out for. I've also listed out the benefits of hyper automation, and so here are a few. Their automated processes, advanced analytics, increased employee satisfaction and motivation. You can even get instant and accurate insights, greater productivity, increased team collaboration, and many more as listed. So we've discussed on what hyperautomation is. Let's look a bit deeper on what are the key components of hyperautomation. So the first thing, AI, as we all know, this artificial intelligence, it has played a vital role in most of the automation process happening. It helps understanding audio, engaging in conversations, recognizing images, reading documents, and also interpreting the data from Internet of Things. So next key component is machine learning. ML, it is also one such technologies which stood up for enabling adaptive and intelligence process. Instead of working on the same repetitive sequence or same tasks, it looks for the next best action, right? Next is advanced analytics. So now that we've spoke about technologies which automate or adapt and enable processes, we'll also have to track measures, right? We have to track measures and even prove our business outcomes delivered by the automation process by adapting the process or for a continuous growth. Next is long running workflows. So instead of working on simple and well defined tasks or processes which do not need much of uh, work, so instead of working on those kind of processes, hyper automation, it helps us in automating more complex and heavy processes, and naive integrations, tools and technologies to identify existing processes that are tightly coupled with enterprise applications, right? So the last one is process mining. So it provides platforms that can look deeply into how teams are working to show what should be automated and what can be automated. Um, so the next is coming to robotic process automation. So what are robots over here? We've heard robotic process automation, but what are robots? Are they the physical robots which we see in movies, or are they those kinds, or are they those physical robots? But that is not what we are talking about here. They are the software robots that streamline repetitive tasks and tedious process in the workplace, right? So compared to the traditional workflow automation tools, where a software developer produces a list of actions to automate a task and interface the backend system using some internal APIs or dedicated scripting language. So all this in this was the traditional workflow, right? All the manual work has been done. So compared to that, now robotic process automation systems, it develops the action list by watching the user performance that task in the application's UI, and then it performs the automation by repeating those tasks differently in the UI. So this is somehow, it is, we are able to overcome those manual tasks, right? So basically it is in a form, it is a form of process automation solution that enables business users within the workforce to automate a task based on a series of actions which are normally completed by humans. um, Next, so we have two types of robots, which are attended and unattended. So attended is a desktop automation where user inputs are required for the decision making. They would need users input to perform or continue a task. But whereas unattended are robots which do not require any human intervention, and they carry out actions 24 by 7. Also, they can be accessed remotely, like you can say invoice processing. Also, automation, it allows us to use machines for what machines are designed for, right? So humans can show their creativity, their empathy in showing in solving complex and heavy problems, and work with people instead of performing those mundane tasks, which, or instead of performing those manual tasks, their creativity, their technical skills can be showed in solving bigger, complex and heavy problems. So that is the main aim, or that's the main motto of automation, hyper automation, RPA, right? So next, so here are a few use cases where we'll be using RPA, which I've come across. So actually, RPA, it is implemented in almost most of the sectors. Um, as you can see, one is banking and financial services, where we use it for activating cards or fraud claims. We can easily detect those fraud claims, right? And then insurance, it claims processing, even new business preparations. Then healthcare, you can get reports automatically instead of writing down the reports or receipts. So it's you, all those are automated now. And even system reconciliation. Then manufacturing, bill of material generation, and even personal protection equipment management. Then telecommunications, where service orders management, and even reporting, quality reporting also can be done, can be automated. And then energy and utilities, account setup, and even meter reading validation. So all these are different use cases which we come across in our day to day lives, which are using RPA, known or unknownly, right? So next, a few other classifications I've given, those are contact center, human resource, finance and account. Yeah, so these all we've actually come across most of these use cases. um, Next is, yeah, so yes, now we've been discussing on what automation is, what hyper automation is, what RPA, how are they helping us overcome from working with all these mundane and repetitive processes. So now it's time for us to also look at selecting the right tool for automation, right? It should be scalable, platform independent, even consider security measures. It should be user friendly and efficient, should have the capability to integrate with existing legacy systems, even exceptional handling process to detect errors. Why? Because we are using hyper automation to work with to work on not regular tasks or not regular problems. It is beyond the level, right? So for that we need exceptional tools to deal with so much of amount of data. So for that we also need to decide on a correct tool which can help us solve all these problems, right? So for that, and one such tool is Microsoft Power Automate. So Power Automate is a visual workflow engine which helps automate approval processes, infuse intelligence, and integrate legacy apps. Power Automate flows can be enhanced by using pre-built or custom AI builder models. About this AI builder model, we'll be dealing with it in the coming slides. So that is how Power Automate is able to deal with all these huge amount of data with all the characteristics I've mentioned above. It is able to solve all our problems, and it is giving us the whole platform to deal with so much of data and work on RPA, automation, hyper automation. So yeah, so basically that's one of the best tool to work with RPA. So this is now I'll talk about a use case which we can actually implement. So here is a use case. So I'll be dealing with it now in the next one or two slides. So it is return to work, automating employee reboarding. So end-to-end automation of the process, which is the need of the hour to bring back the employees to work with minimal workforce post-COVID and lockdown relaxation. So I'll be giving a high level understanding of this use case now, and a further detailed explanation we'll do it in the next slide. So we'll be collecting all the employee details, keeping all the scenarios in mind, like employees, are they from the red hot zone or project criticality, etc. We So based on all these points, we will be automating an email with a form of all details about their availability and their situations, commitments on returning to work. So based on the reports, based on the responses, assessment is done and sent to the approval team. So once the finalized employee list is ready, it is sent to the admin team to check and make the required preparations, readiness, and logistics. And the final list of the employees are then sent an automated mail on the confirmation on reboarding or returning to work. So this entire process can be automated by infusing intelligence and integrate with legacy applications using Power Automate and its new RPA capabilities alongside AI Builder, which are all part of Microsoft Power Platform. They create a uh, Power Platform flow to automate routing and approval. So use of AI Builder to create a prediction model to automatically pass the information. Implement robotic process automation with desktop UI flow to implement in the use case. So we'll have a detailed discussion on this in the coming slide. So um, starting with, this is the technical architecture of the use case, the return to work use case. So starting with HR portal, HR or the organization portal. So we'll retrieve relevant employee profile entity from the existing organization or HR portal. So this portal contains all the employee details, which includes name, location, all their personal details, etc. So, along with this information, it also contains project details specifying in which project the employee is working, whether the projects are critical, is it having any security sensitive data, or is the employee dealing or working with the security sensitive data. So, basically, it would contain the entire end to end employee database, right? So, next, we'll have to extract relevant employee data. So, based on the project and the employee criticality, check for the home address if it falls under the red hot zone. So, red hot zone, as we all know, it's where it's COVID prone kind. So, based on the criticality of the project, client might ask the employee to return to sorry. Um, yeah, so client might ask the employee to return to work, or if the employee is working with security sensitive data like security or banking or any personal information. So from all this employee data, check if the respective employee is from red hot zone, or if he or she is from on site, then were they quarantined. So this is where Power Automate comes into picture. You can create flows to check for employees project criticality and also their home address, whether they are from a red hot zone or not. So in this part we'll be using Power Automate to create flows to check if a employee is from red hot zone, or is his project is this project critical? So all these will analyze or will extract the data using Power Automate flows. Next is email trigger to employee or personal readiness. So once all the relevant employee data is collected, an automated mail with pre-configured questionnaire survey link is sent to the filtered employees. So this link would contain the employee's travel history, whether they are diagnosed with the COVID symptoms or any of their family members are, or is the employee a high touched exposure case, or is he or she concerned on returning back to work. So all these scenarios. So also organization will decide on how many shifts it is maintaining as and ask the employee with which shift or timing they are comfortable with. So all these details will be included in the link on to get so that employee can submit the information for the questions with respect to personal and readiness to work details. So next is analyzing the employee submitted data. So once you have the submitted data, sentiment analysis is performed on the data submitted. They arrive at a high at a weighted scoring where confidence levels of employee are also considered to return to work. So this is where AI builder comes into picture. um, so AI Builder is a power platform capability that enables you to add intelligence to your automated processes, predict outcomes, and help improve business performance. Right. So there is a great value in being able to intelligently extract specific information from from anything from a form, or so that it is available to use as a part of a business process automation. So AI Builder can identify and parse the key value pairs from the data, as in we are performing the sentiment analysis, right? It gives us the scores, the weighted scores. Based on that, we can figure out which employee to be considered, which employee not to. So the next part is so once the assessment process is complete, so based on the scoring which we have gathered, come up with the list of employees, sorry, who have to attend work and trigger a notification email to approving authority. Here again, we would be using Power Automate to trigger the notification email. So post approval, admin team will be notified with the list of employees to ensure readiness of the facilities. Like what the facilities would be, like social distancing, seating arrangement, availability of hand sanitizers and masks, deep cleaning of high touch points, arrangement of screening employees, splitting employees into multiple shifts, and sanitized transportation, and then submit this checklist with all preparedness. So any response awaited manually will be taken care by Power Automate, which enables to do RPA through a uh, feature called UI flow that can help automate the process. Right. So once the process is complete, a confirmation notification is sent back to the employee with a date and time and also the reporting to work. Right. So this is the whole workflow of how this return to work use case is done with Power Automate, yeah, AI builder. Right. So using this, all the workflows will automate this use case. So finally, I can say, so technology is abundant. Everyone can access everything all the time. So, and the technologies are accelerating change. Operations have always been at the core of every business and will cease to be delivered by humans. So, this is all about RPA, hyperautomation, and automation. So, hope you all enjoyed this session. Yep. So, I think that's it from my side. Um, any questions, or Yash Agarwal?
Thank you so much for the session, Janvi. I'm just looking at the chat right now. I don't see any questions, but anybody, please, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them on the chat. Also, Janvi, it'd be great if you could put any of your social media links on the chat so people can connect with you.
Yeah, sure. Give me a minute. It says meeting chat is muted, so I don't. Okay, now it's enabled.
And we also have a question for you, Janvi. So, what could be the use case of RPA in an insurance industry?
Sorry.
There's a question for you, and it's like, what can be the use case of RPA in an insurance industry?
Yeah, so I've already mentioned like business preparations or claiming processes, some part something in that area.
Definitely. Also, Nikhil, I've actually worked on some of the use cases for insurance industries, and a specific use case that kept on coming was how can we automate processing of a claim or issuance of a new policy to someone. So, how RPA could be useful over there is you put your social security or your identifier number over there. It goes, checks your profile, does a background check for you from different government systems as well, and then finally it comes up with a number stating that you are eligible for so much amount, and then if you pay it, it processes it at that point itself. So that's one. And there could be other use cases, such as, let's say, if you are under a claim filing process, and when you're filing this claim process, let's say it's for a medical insurance, you have to produce your bills or the receipts of the hospital over there. Now those bills cannot be kept in a hard copy, because it's like it will just waste storage, and having a soft copy will allow the hospital to manage those records better. But now if individual bills are passed on over there, it is difficult to store them at one place as well. So earlier most places had this one person who's sitting over there downloading all these documents, scanning them as PDFs, and then collating them into one single document. But now using RPA, what you could do is the person can just upload those documents to a single folder of the client at one place. Then after that, if he just changes the metadata of the folder as, let's say, approved for final processing, then RPA picks that up, or your Power Automate desktop flow picks that up, gets all those documents, collates them into a single PDF, puts them to an Azure Blob storage, for example, and then processes the entire transaction over there. So I hope that was useful. And then we have another question over here. So how does Power Automate differ with RPA tools like UiPath? Do you have any take on that, Janvi?
Yeah, so as far as I know, Power Automate, it gives you an easy workflow, so you don't really have to uh, learn something new. So it is just about workflow, putting things together. Um, yeah, so it gives you an easy way of working with the tools.
All right.
I
To add
Yeah.
to that, I would also say that Power Automate has a capability. Basically, Power Automate has two categorizations of flows that you can create. One is cloud flows and one is the desktop flows. So when you're comparing it with other RPA tools like UiPath, Blue Prism, Automation Anywhere, these are all most of the times based or compared with desktop flows only. Plus, cloud flows have the capability that every time you have an API that is exposed or API that you can use, you directly just go over there using the cloud flows itself. But when you have a code execution part, if you want to record a process and replay it continuously, that is where you use the desktop flows. And then you could use cloud flows to directly orchestrate your desktop flows as well. But that is a feature which is lacking in most other RPA tools, and there are other pros and cons that we can keep continuing to discuss over. But these are the main ones that I think carry a lot of importance. And then we also have a question that what is the technical knowledge needed for implementing the solutions that you've discussed, Janvi?
Yeah, so I think AI, ML, yes, these latest technologies should be sufficient. But in this session, I was like primarily focusing on how Power Automate is helping us do this RPA. But yes, AI, some parts of machine learning AI should be good to go. I have done that part, so as much as I know, I think that should be sufficient. You,
All right, that's cool. I'd also say that if you have some basic knowledge of how do you build your logic or how do you implement that, that will be also very helpful. Along with that, I think what Janvi said would be a good starting point, and then you can progress as the use cases grow. And then we have a question that says, in what terms is Power Automate better than other highly known RPA tools like BP, Automation Anywhere? And I think we just discussed that part. So I wouldn't say that Power Automate is better or the other one is better. It's just the pros and cons each tool or each toolkit has. And then what we do is we use the best one depending upon the use case that we are building. Plus, there's also a lot of things that go into consideration like licensing, or if you already have a Microsoft tech stack that your company is using and such other things. Do you want to add something to that, Janvi?
Um, that's pretty much it. Yes, I have nothing to add to.
All right. And yes, the video is recorded. There's one more question. In other terms, Surinder asked that he wants to know if there are any integrations of Power Automate with MS products like MS Office, CRM, or Dynamics.
Yes, yes, there are. These are services in Power Automate. So you'll be using them as services um, in Microsoft Power Automate. Microsoft MS Dynamics 365, MS Office. Yes.
That's correct. And I would add to that again. So basically, Power Automate Cloud Flows has the capability to connect with over 300 or 400 different connectors across different services from Microsoft and non-Microsoft providers. Apart from that, you could build your own custom connectors. You can make your HTTP calls as well. So it depends really on the use case that you're building and what kind of tools that you want to integrate it with. But as far as I know, it can be done with most or all of the tools that have an API level access that you can call on. And we also have one, okay, I think it's a suggestion. Then, so Janvi, how can RPA, that is Power Automate Desktop, used for as a replacement of UI testing? I think we have a couple of sessions on that going on as well. But do you want to answer that one?
To be honest, I'm not really into this UI testing, so I may not be able to answer this. You could add anything, Yash, if you're aware of.
Definitely. So basically, what UI testing is like, there is a manual way of doing it, then there's an automated way of doing it. So most of the times when people are manually doing it, there are certain set business processes or transactions that they have to perform. For example, let's say if you are buying something from an online site like Amazon. So what you do is you go, you search for your product, you put it in the cart, you then complete the transaction by paying it. So if a UI tester is doing that, they would start from the home page, search for the product, and first they would search, okay, where is my search coming up? Then select the product and then add it to the cart. So a similar process, it's like a very traditional process in a part of testing. So you train your, or basically you record this entire thing, and then the RPA consumes it. It keeps on performing that on a scheduled basis. So when it is doing that on a schedule, it keeps on giving you with the details of how much time did the page took to load, how much time did an image take to load, and so on. So those telematics can be used for a better insight on UI testing. Definitely, it's a scope, but then there are other things also you can perform here. So if you're testing it on an application which is having a good business impact and the return time is very low, so you could create a knock call. You could bring all your support engineers onto that call and say, why is it taking so much time? If there is a genuine issue, if your websites are deployed over Azure or such other service providers, you could restart your web service as well. So there's a lot of scope over there. Again, it depends upon what kind of use cases that we are working on, and we can continue with building it on the top of it. And we have one question. So should we install an on-prem gateway to leverage Power Automate Desktop?
Um, I don't really think it's just you'll have to install your Power Automate desktop and you'll get all the resources and services.
Yes, yes. So, Janvi, it's like all those resources and services are from the same page, but for using Power Automate Desktop, you need Windows 10 Pro, you need an on-premise data gateway, and you need all the plugins or all the extensions if you're doing browser-based automation as well.
Okay.
And we have one question here. Can Power Automate Desktop work without internet? I believe no.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, as long as if you're using an on-prem database, but still you would need internet. I don't think without internet it will be doable. And yep. I think that's pretty much it. If anybody has more questions, please feel free to drop them on the chat. I know it's morning for some, it's afternoon for some, and maybe evening for someone. So we still have a couple of minutes before we start the next session. So please feel free to grab your coffees and get back. I'll be back after grabbing mine. So thank you.
Thanks, Yash, for having me here.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We have our next session by Yavar, and Yavar is going to talk about RPA with desktop flow. So, over to you, Yavar. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Can you hear me?
Yes, Yash. How are you? Yash,
I'm
can
good.
you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. So,
Thank you so
yeah,
much. And yes, you pronounce my name really correctly. I
okay.
hope I am also pronouncing your name correctly, Yash.